Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and welcome to the Battle for Azeroth Alpha testing first pass, this time with the Retribution Paladin. Sorry, Toad. Anyway, we are a giant male holy cow because chat voted on it, and if you wanted to pick what classes, race, gender combos that I made, then turn to the live stream where all this testing is done. Links down below for the live stream, of course, if you want to be a part of that. But if you missed the live stream, of course, that is going to be, of course, apparently, archived and put up on YouTube right here as well. This is the discussion video where I break it all down, all the stuff we've munched together for almost 4 hours. We have a lot of discussionary stuff with Retribution Paladin that came up because of all the things they've lost and the mobility topic and the AoE topic, but that's neither here nor there. Of course, we're going to show off what it's like when you log into BFA currently right now in the design process. And if you want to keep these streams going, then of course you can check out the Twitch page over there and support me on that side of things, or just subscribe to the YouTube channel right here and watch the videos as they come out. But let us go through some basics. Now, we're not playing a pure DPS spec. This whole intro part of the video will be a little bit more condensed to just be, of course, the spec that we're playing. Also, my shirt is salmon colored. Let me know in the comments down below what shirt color you think I'm wearing, what color my shirt is, because I wanted to wear a pinkish shirt, and this is the closest I have because we're playing Paladin for this first episode, but it looks kind of orange, apparently, on my camera. It's salmon, okay? I'm just really pale. Gosh. Biggest change right off the get-go here for Retribution Paladin is the mastery has been changed, or reverted, or changed back. You have Hand of Light, which is just increases all holy damage done by a flat amount, period. Coupled with that, the Judgment window is gone. So the Judgment window is gone. Overall, what you're going to see here is that you use Judgment as a builder and damage, and it still does a window effect. It's a more of a single debuff that increases the damage flatly by 25% of your next holy power spender on the target. One target, because no longer is there any cleave or any cleave talents for Judgment. It will physically only affect one target. There's no additional baseline changes. The one holy power baseline is back, so you're not just doing the kind of CS window you are on live right now. And it is very specific, which is the next holy power spender. So you obviously have Templar's Verdict and Divine Storm baseline, but there are other spenders that will also benefit just the same, so just keep that in mind overall. You have talents like Divine Hammer and Zeal, which were removed. I'll just bring up the talent window as it is currently right now. Any of the talents you see I selected we'll look at later, so don't worry about that. But Divine Hammer, Zeal, gone. Divine Intervention, Judgment of Light, also gone. Your Retribution passive, which has like a half a page of stuff that I'm going to submit to Blizzard about feedback that we talked about today about how it doesn't need to have the damage amp. But that's all in there. Like, there's a huge amount of stuff. Let me go back up here. Oh, yeah. It's like half a page of talking about just the Retribution. It's a list form and it's paragraphed and whatever, but still. So that may see changes or not. But the duration has been lowered to 10 seconds, but the damage gain and damage mitigation are the same, which may or may not be an issue for people still because the damage amplification is there, unfortunately, because that's a part of the big feedback loop that I'm going to be sending in, is that it limits but also engages and allows a Ret Paladin to do a lot of damage, but like the whole feedback loop of the semi-toxic gameplay of, hey, die for me in my opener so I can do more damage, and that amount of damage because of the stacking multiplicative nonsense is more than your opener. Haha, like that's not very fun gameplay, right? So all of this core's attacking me. That's been changed. Blessing of Freedom has a new extra bit in the tooltip where it added forced movement effects immunity. So pushes, pulls, knockbacks, Ursol's Vortex, etc. I imagine that's what that means. Chat was asking a lot about mind control and other type effects. I don't think it'll matter, but I think for the most part it means that you can't be thunderstormed away or, you know, typhooned back or something like that if you're in freedom, as well as not being able to be slowed. Pretty neat. However, Divine Steed was nerfed. It has 2 charges right now because of the Cavalier talent, so ignore that, but it's a 1-minute recharge up from 45 seconds. A huge amount of talent reshuffling across the board, as you see in front of you. The Ashbringer trait, Wake of Ashes, is talentable, longer cooldown, stun was reduced, but there's no dot because there's no ashes to ashes. And then all these other things are going to be talent reworks, which we'll go over soon. But that is what your talents look like. You do see that Hammer of Wrath is back. We'll talk about that more when we head downstairs. But other than that, you have everything else baseline. Still no Blessing of Sacrifice, unfortunately. Only Prot and Holy have that as it currently stands. And nothing else baseline was changed very much. Obviously, no Might coming back. Wisdom and Kings are still there. Where are we going? Lay on Hands the same. Everything else is the same. Shield of Vengeance now, because it does holy damage and because your mastery deals holy damage, doesn't work correctly yet. It doesn't actually take into account your mastery in the current math, which is being reported. But that makes it have even a little bit more of a damage synergy-esque component to using it properly. Will amp the damage. Of course, if you use Shield of Vengeance and you're in Avenging Wrath or Crusade or whatever, that's going to affect it. But because it is holy damage, it will be amplified by your mastery when that gets fixed. Going over holy damage stuff, obviously there is Judgment, which does holy damage, and Templar's Verdict, and Divine Storm does holy damage. Crusader Strike and Blade of Justice are still physical damage. But other than that, nothing else has changed baseline out of the norm that you would expect. Yep, that's the same. That's the same. So we'll go over some talent combinations here. And each time I go over like your changed talents in these videos, there is a bit of a combination effect that may or may not be needed to sort of show off how the spec will then play. The biggest one I want to open with right here off the bat is Retribution Paladins. You lost Wake of Ashes being a 30-second cooldown baseline. It's now 45 seconds in a talent. Doesn't do anywhere near as much damage. More of a builder. You lost Divine Hammer. You lost Zeal. You lost Bouncing Judgment. You lost the Echoed Divine Storms and the Divine Storm Tornado that you threw out, right? You lost all these AoE things, and that's a lot to lose. Remember, though, that every other spec in the game is also losing that. So don't get too down on it. But I'm going to open up with a build that is probably the AoE focus of how Ret will now work before Azerite gear. Hopefully Azerite gear is in for a second pass down the road, so we can see if there are set bonuses or relic trait artifact perks and how Azerite gear works, right? So don't get too worried about that. But we're going to start off here real quick with the 15 tier. Doesn't matter for the AoE portion, so we'll keep the new Greater Judgment, which is just critting all the time above 60% health. We'll take Blade of Wrath, which is the same. Your auto attacks have a chance to reset the cooldown of Blade of Justice. The internal database says it's 3.5 times haste. So with my current haste value without any other abilities factored in, it's roughly 4-ish procs a minute. But Blade of Wrath is literally the only talent on this tier that really helps AoE, and you'll see why in a moment. We'll take Divine Vengeance and Divine Purpose. Divine Purpose is still the 20% chance to make your next Holy Power spending ability free after using a Holy Power spender. And we'll take Divine Vengeance now, which is in the AoE option tier at 60, where Divine Storm has a 50% chance to refund 1 Holy Power if it hits 3 or more enemies. Be very clear on this. We've talked about this a lot, and if you don't know how or more tooltips read and function, the or more means there is just a flat chance at 3 or more. There is no at 6, it's a 100% chance, right? No. Or every 3, it's a 50% chance, right? No. You can hit 3 targets with a Divine Storm, or 300 targets. You only have a 50% chance on 1 roll to get 1 Holy Power back, which by itself is really weak, except when coupled with Divine Purpose. Because, as you'll hopefully see as I go hit this dummy over here, when you have a Divine Purpose proc, and you have a Divine Storm proc, you will actually turn, as you saw right there, it turns Divine Storm into an actual builder. And you'll also see why the Blade of Wrath resets are really important for AoE, because you get even more holy power in this regard to continuously do that into this, into that. So obviously they're going to be a little bit downtime when you're doing the full AoE build, but that's what Blade of Wrath helps for. There's the guaranteed crits, of course. There's this into that. But this is, I had a test during the VOD earlier today when I was doing the 3.5 hours of jargon. I actually had a 7-string, because that you get extra builders. Here's a string right here for you. This is 5 into 6, I think. Because the RNG nature Divine Purpose, but the coupling with Divine Vengeance right now, it's very possible to almost string together 3 Divine Storms just because of the possibility of gaining holy power from hitting Divine Storm, which obviously isn't really a thing all the time, but honestly, they're AoE, whereas it is random-ish, and there aren't anything right now, sans what we might get with the Azeroth gear in the future, to really, that's a waste of holy power right there, to really make it better, but it's not bad. Because you got to put in perspective that everyone else's AoE is getting nerfed. So, and that's the Divine Vengeance version, which is a little bit of RNG involved in the RNG of Divine Purpose, which I think couples together. I was told by Peo, one of my previous guests, who is a reputable source of this information. I trust his information, his mathematicianness, and the community that they built it from. Divine Purpose plus Divine Vengeance and... or not and Blade of Wrath. I actually didn't write that down in my notes. But the Divine Vengeance, Divine Purpose combination, let me double check here, is, yeah, so Divine Vengeance, Divine Purpose together, so not even factoring in Blade of Wrath, because that depends on a couple other factors, is roughly 60% more Divine Storm usage because of the interaction. Because of the free use counts for Divine Vengeance. So up to 60% more than without using this combination. So very much an AoE-focused build. However, there is the possibility to just use Consecration now, which Consecration is also now a builder. So Consecration is a 15-second cooldown, not reduced by haste, but it does give you the option to build. It gives you 1 holy power per use of Consecration to give you the consistent damage on the ground, and you'll have that, plus, of course, the Divine Purpose procs intermittently weaved in here. But overall, it's going to feel a whole lot slower, I think, due to the fact that the extra chance to make Divine Storm a builder probably overrides the flat damage that Consecrate deals. But that also is just math and or situational and your playstyle preference. So that'll come down to later on. But it's there. That is your other sort of AoE option in the tier. It doesn't follow you. That was a point of contention too, because of the AoE reductions that Ret has seen. Obviously, Consecrate is just a set and forget, so moving out of it means no damage, unfortunately. But you also can Consecrate with no target to generate holy power out of combat. This will not work to finagle bosses if they don't mess that up. They being Blizzard in this case, because when you pull bosses in dungeons or raids, it usually resets or baselines any sort of power gains. Like Chi does this, soul shards, combo points, that kind of madness. So if you build up out of combat to 5 holy power and pull the boss, I was told you get rolled back to 2 holy power. So there's kind of a benefit, but not really. And honestly, for the small gain that would give you, no raid is going to have 45-second pull timer or something ridiculous so you can cast a whole bunch of Consecrates. But it does give you the option to Consecrate while moving in dungeons and then go into packs with a Divine Storm. Whereas right now, you physically need to hit things to gain holy power, if I'm not totally mistaken. Which is a nice quality of life tweak for how you use holy power as a Retribution Paladin. It's nice. On the same tier, just to get this out of the way, and we'll have this for the rest of the tests because it's not AoE focused, we have Wake of Ashes. It just does straight up radiant damage, 12 yards in front of you. That's the same. Same slow. The stun is reduced to 5 seconds from 6. 5 holy power generation, but the biggest thing is a 45-second cooldown, no longer a 30-second cooldown. But let's look at the bursty build, or a potentially bursty build we're looking at here with other talents coming into play, which I don't have really a lot of buttons for all these on the alpha, but we'll see. So Crusade, coupled with Wake of Ashes, Crusade replaces Avenging Wrath, and it was nerfed. It was cut down quite a bit in overall nonsensicalities. That it's still a 3% damage and haste amp for 20 seconds. Each holy power spent during the Crusade increases damage done and haste by an additional 3, up to 10 stacks, not 15. So the math I was told was it takes you roughly 7-ish seconds to have Crusade fully stacked, only giving you roughly 12 to 13 seconds of the full effect, which is obviously less than 20 seconds of a flat 35% damage and healing amp, right? Crusade has no healing amp. Avenging Wrath has the damage and healing amp. But the multiplicative benefit of having Crusade in this form now is very burst oriented. The burst orientation here comes into play with something like this. So Hammer of Wrath, the side note of Hammer of Wrath before you start seeing numbers here and freak out, numbers are not tuned. Hammer of Wrath, which was put in the last build, it doesn't scale with versatility or your mastery yet. Based on that alone, as a builder, on a under 5-second cooldown with any amount of haste, really, it does about twice as much damage based on this current iteration as a Templar's Verdict. So Templar's Verdict, doing 2146 in this current iteration, if you factor in 43% mastery and 14% versatility, that easily makes this do roughly almost 4,000 damage. So Hammer of Wrath in the Crusade or Avenging Wrath, or of course the 20% execute window, is a builder and will do significant damage. And as many of the Rep Paladins said in chat today, make it baseline or always talented forever. So next expansion, they make it baseline. Obviously a little bit ridiculous, but this, and this, coupled with the new execution sentence. Execution sentence has been in a bad place for a while. When it was the dot, it was fine. When it was the new not dot that deal damage at the very end, when you put it in the judgment window to make it deal damage, it was bursty and clunky, which there's the C word, right? 30-second cooldown, 3 holy power. It is a spender. You deliver an execution sentence dealing holy damage. This does more damage, slightly more damage than a Templar's Verdict. Templar's Verdict, of course, costs 3. It does slightly less, so it is a trade-off where it is a slight gain. But this brings back, straight off the bat, basically the new judgment window. So if you remember, judgment right now is 25% damage of the next spender. 1. But execution sentence debuffs the target to take an additional 25% holy damage from you for 10 seconds. And there are 2 ways to look at this, because we were looking at it first off as, well, do you build and then do you execution sentence into a judgment window to then have the 25% damage up all the time just for follow-up TVs? Or do you do the opposite, which I have to wait for it to come back off cooldown? Do you do this? We're just gonna hit the target on me real quick here and you know, yeah. Because this all just comes down to math and stacking cooldowns and mitigation windows. But do you build to 5, hit execution sentence and judgment, and then Templar's Verdict, and then rebuild, and then do it again? Which version is better? Do you buff ES with judgment and then get 1 ES judgmented TV in the window? Sounds such a weird way to say acronyms. Or do you build ES, Judge, TV, and then possibly get an additional one behind it? But haha, this is where the cooldown bursty window comes into play, right? I don't know how to do this correctly. Obviously not, because I'm not a huge Paladin player, but I don't know if this would be another way you would couple this together, right? So we got Crusade. which obviously gives you a whole bunch of haste, and you need to spend holy power in the window. You have Hammer of Wrath, which will activate when we are in Crusade to generate more holy power. We have Execution Sentence, which will then couple on top of and stack with the Crusade window. And we have Wake of Ashes to be on demand 5 holy power. So if you start this off with a Crusade window like this, I don't know exactly where you would fit all these buttons into the rotation to make it the best use of it. But the rotation gets really fast, at least based on the current character incarnation that is not really strong. One more! Damn, I couldn't get one more Hammer of Wrath off. There'll be a priority list, right? But, so if you Crusade at no holy power into Wake, and then you TV Judge, TV, then build to Execution Sentence, or you Judge, Execution Sentence, TV, like there's all these, like what is the A, B, C, D, E of this sort of build, right? Because you'd want to Execution Sentence, not like what I did there. You'd want to Execution Sentence when it couples the 10 seconds window when your Crusade is fully stacked. So you have 30% haste and 30% damage on yourself, and then you Execution Sentence with that damage amp, possibly also into the Judgment window, and then have 25% increased damage plus the 30-30 into a Wake of Ashes combination of Templar's Verdicts and Judgments and Templar's Verdicts and Templar. You know what I'm getting at here, right? The bursty potential of this combination is quite good. But that is sort of where we felt in chat when we were testing. That's where Crusade feels now. It feels very much that it's in that burst-oriented window and not as the set and forget that you have now. And of course, that comes down to numbers, tuning, and that kind of thing. But how to do this properly and what order of operations you will use, I am not totally sure. So if we build to 5 here, we'll try this again one time because I'm kind of like live figuring this out with you guys. So if we Judgment... See, because we have to hit Hammer of Wrath in here, which is so weird. So we're at 10 stacks, so I missed it a little bit there. Because you want to buff your Hammer of Wrath in this window, if you can. Also, Hammer of Wrath's animation is placeholder. It's the old one. It is the original from like BC and Vanilla. It looks terrible, so obviously that's going to be improved, because Judgment looks way better. But you see, like that motion right there, we are in the Crusade Execution Sentence, activated Hammer of Wrath window. What's the priority? Because again, Hammer of Wrath will do about double damage of a Templar's Verdict, on top of 30% damage, on top of 25% damage. Looks quite neat for the bursty composition that you could put together with your talents. But I am no, super... I played a lot of Ret Paladin back in MOP. So I actually have this transmog on my human Paladin from Mists of Pandaria, but I haven't played it in, 2 expansions or whatever. But that's that combination. Overall, though, Execution Sentence could just be that Judgment gameplay window, regardless of any other combination you could have. Because obviously, being in this window with its uptime as it is, every 30 seconds for 10 seconds, Divine Purpose could be fine, because you could throw off a ton of Templar's Verdicts in there if you get lucky, right? It's that Judgment window gameplay on top of the baseline version of how Judgment works anyway, which does stack in that window. Hammer of Wrath, though, is interesting because it feels like it's going to only really benefit from Crusade shenanigans, or fights where you are in execute for a long time, or just fights that have the 8 to 10 to 12 or 16 minute fight times where you're going to have lots of use of Crusade or just Avenging Wrath in general to get use out of it. Because Blade of Wrath gives you so much holy power, roughly 4 to 5 procs per minute, right? That's a lot of extra holy power every minute. And Fires of Justice is the exact same as it is on live. It's just the cooldown reduction on Crusader Strike and the chance to make your next holy power spender only cost 1 less. Which brings me to a very different build. So let's go with this, shall we? And actually, I don't even know. Wake of Ashes could work here just because of the synergy therein. But let's go with this. The build combinations here will all come down to numbers or player preference or what you're doing in World of Warcraft, of course. But the new Righteous Verdict is the Retribution Paladin Legendary Cloak, where a Templar's Verdict will increase the damage of your next Templar's Verdict within 6 seconds by 15%. It just always stays up there. And then Fires of Justice gives you a whole lot more Crusader Strikes to keep building on a consistent level. That's why I don't think Blade of Wrath works here. It's not consistent, it's RNG. And it gives you the RNG chance to make your TVs only cost 2, which again, keeps you in that Righteous Verdict window. Wake of Ashes for the opener and for Snap, Holy Power, of course. And the new talent down here, Inquisition, which is and has gone through many different iterations over the course of a long time. 1 to 3 Holy Power, obviously 3. Consumes up to 3 Holy Power to increase your damage done and haste by 8% flat multiplicative, right? It lasts for 15 seconds per Holy Power consumed. The one neat thing about Inquisition is that it actually pandemics. So if you double cast it, you get a full minute of Inquisition. And as you're seeing right there at the top of the screen, I'm trying to stay in the Templar's Verdict window as well, because of the increased damage that the Templar's Verdict window gains on top of the increased haste that the Spectres feels good at with this sort of a build right here. But it's almost there. Yeah, see, it's pretty easy to stay within this window. And again, I suck at Retribution Paladin because I haven't played it since MOP. So you do get coupled with some windows of time with the Judgment and TV bonus. We're gonna pop some wings here just because. We will have to refresh soon, but then it also lines up with the fact that we have Wake of Ashes coming up here. It's gonna fall off. Damn. It fell off. But we will refresh at 3, and then Wake of Ashes, and then go right back into it. Even though I should have just hit Judgment there. There might be some loss. This brings up the conversation we had about the loss of potential Holy Power because of how Judgment window works, or Judgment debuff works, where you may need to sometimes, only with Wake of Ashes in this regard, you may need to waste Holy Power just to rebuff the target, but I was also told that that interaction isn't entirely necessary, because the faster you spend, the faster... There was a proc with Fire to Justice right there. The faster you spend, the faster you build. So you don't have to you don't have to worry too much about the window not lining up, because it's an arbitrary 25% opposed to your mastery as it is on live. But we'll get all the way back up here, we'll refresh, and then we'll do this, and then that, and then Wake, and then that, and then this, and then that, and then this, and then... So you see what it flows pretty well. But this is a very consistent, not totally methodical build, because there obviously is a little bit of RNG involved in the timing window with Fires of Justice, but it's obviously way easier than Blade of Wrath. Very, very consistent, very straightforward build. It would work the same and feel the same if you were using Divine Storms instead, right? Because your Divine Storm is going to be obviously buffed by 8% passively. You wouldn't take Righteous Verdict in this window of time if you're really focusing on the AoE cleave game. You could probably take Execution Sentence to debuff your main target to take additional 25% damage, and then of course stack the Judgment window on top of that. So at least when you're Divine Storming, cleaving, your priority target still takes 50% additional damage here and there. Or just take Greater Judgment if there are going to be mobs that are above the 60% health long enough to make use of that combination. But that build feels very straightforward and easy. Obviously, juggling the Righteous Verdict window is the skill cap of that build, and that's just very consistent damage versus, again, the ES, Hammer, Wake of Ashes, Crusade build. So the back and forth we were talking about in chat was that Inquisition might be really good early on to help hit a haste plateau that really enables Ret to feel and flow well, which we were talking about how it might be somewhere in like the 32 to 35% range. So early on, having an 8% multiplicative near passive will feel really good. It'll probably help keep the spec rolling. You also get glowy hands the whole time too. That's not too bad. But it might also fall off late game depending on how Azeroth gear comes into play or whatever, that the Crusade bursted in playstyle will overall net more damage. But that is to be determined by mathy people, not myself. We also talked a lot about utility changes. So Blinding Light has no change. Repentance has no change. Fist of Justice was nerfed slightly to be 2 seconds of cooldown reduction from 2.5. Obviously, Cavalier gives you 2 charges of Divine Steed, but again, Divine Steed is a 1-minute cooldown now, which may or may not be reverted. It seems a little bit punishing because Ret is really slow. Ret can stop being slow in a PvP sense or possibility because you can't be knocked back now, and you can't be slow during Freedom. And of course, you have Hand of Hindrance for the PvP set where you just, you know, can slow someone for actually forever. But, well, slow them down by a whole hell of a lot, not forever though, because of the 20-second cooldown. Anyway. Cavalier seems interesting, but if you look over here at the talent calculator on live right now, you have a lot of these same abilities, right? We always talk about Divine Intervention is gone. Judgment of Light is gone. So they moved around your tier here to be Cavalier, movement speed equals damage or getting out of things. Unbreakable Spirit, because you lost Divine Intervention, Unbreakable Spirit is here. It reduces the cooldown of your Divine Shield, Shield of Vengeance, and Lay on Hands by 30%. So you do get a 3.5 minute Divine Shield. You get a 1:24 Shield of Vengeance and a 7-minute Lay on Hands. So just passive mitigation, not only for yourself and for immunity and the extra Lay on Hands for yourself or someone else, because it still heals for your whole HP instantly. So you can help save someone else if you need that. And that could come in handy on the longer boss fights. And Eye for an Eye is the exact same. It's the physical damage reduction and the physical damage sort of reflect for 10 seconds on a 1-minute cooldown. So now your defensive tier, instead of being Eye for an Eye or Justicar's Vengeance or Word of Glory, is very clearly more cooldowns, more movement, physical damage, all the PvP, let's be honest, cooldown, right? So mostly PvP. Right? Get those rogues off you, the warriors, etc. And that would work. Not enhancement summons anymore. Storm Strike does nature damage now. Haha! But that's the defensive tier. And now you have a healing tier. Selfless Healer comes back. Currently it doesn't work properly. So Selfless Healer is your judgment, reduces the cast time of your next Flash of Light by 33% and increases its healing done to others or on others by 10%, 3 stacks. So this will make your Flash of Light at 3 stacks instant and heal for 30% more on anyone other than yourself, or makes it instant on you. But it doesn't actually gain the healing addition. We did a lot of tests with different dummies and even NPCs. It's not gaining the 30% additional heal right now, but we'll see how that works out in the future when they fix it. Word of Glory we'll go over next, because this has always been like a weird point for me with this talent, because on live right now it's 5 friendly within 15 yards. Now it's 4 friendly within 30. Still 3 holy power and still has 2 charges. The weirdness about this is it's a spender that reduces your damage. Obviously you do no damage with this. You heal people to save them, and it has the 2 charge system involved. So you can fire off your 2, and it does synergize. I left Fires of Justice here because it does work with Fires of Justice, so it only costs you 2 holy power if you have the Fires of Justice proc active. It'll also work with Divine Purpose. Obviously, you can use Word of Glory and get a Divine Purpose proc, and then TV or Divine Storm, etc., because it is a spender. But if it doesn't heal for enough, which right now on this current HP value, I have 15.5k HP, it heals for 4,000. That is not bad. That is not bad at all. It's like 35% of your HP-ish, right? Because half would be like 17 or 7,500. So it heals for 4.2. It's like 30% of a heal, which is good. It depends on if it stays good or at max level 120, it's garbage. And then you have Justicar's Vengeance, which I have to wait for that to be off. There we go. Justicar's Vengeance does more damage than a Templar's Verdict, but it costs 5 holy power. The tooltip right now also nerfed it to deal 50% additional damage and healing when used against a stunned target. This is still 100% damage healing as it is on live. So that obviously has to be adjusted and fixed. But it is holy damage, so it will, of course, be affected by the execution sentence window and the new judgment debuff. And, of course, be affected by your mastery. And it just heals you for the damage it does. It's still, if you do not do, like if you hit a critter, I did it earlier. If you hit a critter and it's going to hit the critter for 6 damage, like if I slap this target on me right here for 3,000, I heal for 3,000. But if I hit this critter, I don't have any holy power because I'm a dingus. If you hit a critter or a lower health mob that does not have the HP required, you will only heal for the damage you deal. That is still a thing. So I healed for 6. So using it on lower health mobs is not as beneficial if you were actually going to heal yourself. Solid 6. But Justicar's Vengeance has a build that came up, we're talking about on stream, was an execution sentence, Fires of Justice, or Blade of Wrath in a similar fashion, but probably Fires of Justice, Justicar's Vengeance, Divine Purpose, Wake of Ashes build, which you would utilize more Justicar's Vengeance as your main source of damage instead of the option, the other, which kind of, but I don't know if that's going to be a mathematically sound reason to do this, because it's not going to do that much more damage and it slows the rotation down so much, unless you get really lucky with procs, that it's just not going to be a good enough thing. It does benefit from all of this stuff, right? So you can make it, you can couple it with it, but it just feels really slow. And I'm not sure it does enough to mitigate the amount of slow down it does. And I'm really not getting any good procs with Fires of Justice here to show off the fact that it could work. But you're using less holy power spenders because it's slowing down the rotation. So that's a Divine Purpose proc. So that's like a best case scenario right there, right? Whoops, wrong button. I don't know. Maybe. I doubt it. It could be a thing at certain gear levels. You'd probably need like the upwards of 35 to 40% or more haste, because you would need to be able to build so much faster passively to get the benefit of, oh, I'm getting healed by a monk. To get the benefit out of the execution sentence and judgment and Justicar's Vengeance windows and hopefully get Divine Purpose procs. It just doesn't seem value at all. I'm not sure. Not sure. You can also take Consecrate in this weird build and use Consecrate as a builder, and it'll get the bonus damage from execution sentence. It'll give you more flat holy power faster on top of Fires of Justice. But that came back to the conversation of, do Retribution Paladins have too many builders now? Because that build quite literally has 4 builders, 2 spenders. Well, 3 spenders, I guess. So I don't know. It's because you build, spend, Divine Purpose. Okay, I mean, come on, game. Now you're gonna get 3 Divine Purpose procs in a row. But there's no scaling chance on Divine Purpose, obviously, so it's super RNG. But it does make you build faster if you do this. It's just a lot of juggling. I don't feel like for a huge gain. And there might be a lot of downtime, but you look at my downtime right here. I got a Fires Justice proc. without enough haste baseline, this build I do not think matters at all. And again, do you ES into the judgment window or do you judgment after ES? I don't know. I'm not sure. I am not smart enough in the ways of the Ret Paladin to know if that's going to be the thing. It works, and they have to be careful. I mean, it could be a thing. It could be a build that could become viable. Mathematically, I don't think it would be unless you had some really good RNG, and it's just not there. Because the damage tooltip right now, right, for Justicar's Vengeance is 2370 holy damage for 5 holy power versus the Templar's Verdict for 2146 for 3. So the damage per holy power, or DPHP, calculation, it probably makes Justicar's Vengeance not worth it. Not worth it. It could be a PvP-ish thing, because you can gain the benefit of stunning someone to do the extra damage. Justicar's Vengeance always seems like it's a weird place. It's obviously an incredibly selfish heal, whereas Selfless has the benefit, and Word of Glory honestly could be pretty okay. Mostly because of the 30-yard change. If you're in a dungeon, you're not always clumped up enough to make Word of Glory valuable, whereas Word of Glory now is a utility item, utility spell, heals so far away from the Paladin, it could be pretty good. But that is overall. Also, remember, coupling Word of Glory in a tough part of a fight with Avenging Wrath also could be sort of like what Enhancement Shamans, like what I used to do with when I had Healing Rain and Healing Tide Totem and Ancestral Guidance back in Mist of Pandaria in Throne of Thunder, most likely, where we used to have a raid cooldown almost from just the Enhancement Shaman, because I would Tide, Stream, Rain, AG, and then attack the target. And I would duplicate and spread out all of that healing, and it'd almost be like a big triage heal. So we'll see how that works out. If Avenging Wrath Word of Glory could be a pretty helpful utility tool for certain parts of encounters, maybe in dungeons, because Mythic Plus are a huge part of BFA, of course, because they're designing the dungeons with that in mind. We'll see. Whereas just your personal survivability might also be a thing too, but Selfless Healer might be a set and forget, right? Instant heals on yourself to have just a store charge of is beneficial, period. Because you'll always have that. But let me know in the comments down below what you think of the new Retribution Paladin and sort of how the 3 different build styles may play out and how you think the new talents may work out in the end. Let me know what your thoughts are, if I missed anything up, or if you have any questions about the Retribution Paladin, of course, leave them down below. Of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel right here if you want the coverage for Alpha to continue, of course, into Beta as we move forward. And all the VODs will be here, and the side content and the Alpha Beta shows will be here. Of course, if you want to be part of the actual experience of testing these specs and classes from the get-go, go check out the Twitch channel and follow the Twitch channel over there. Links are all down below the stream. So thank you all very much for watching as the song fades out at an inappropriate time. Can we get a new song, please? That is the current Retribution Paladin in Battle for Azeroth Alpha, as it is right now, the 5th of March, 2018. We'll see how it changes in the future. Thank you all for watching yet again, and I'll see you all in the next Alpha testing video. I was going to say froth, but then I was like, I shouldn't say froth, but now I just said froth. So, I mean, I'm just going to close the video out now. That's all.